What's up, everybody? It's KBR Sports, the best sports talk show, your 24-hour day. I'm your host, Brendan Abbin, without my co-host, Nigel Patterson. Nigel will be joining us later on in the show, so for right now, it's just me and you, ladies and gentlemen. So you guys get to just listen to my pure and raw voice throughout the first however many minutes of the show. What a blessing. What a blessing. Remember, you all can follow and subscribe to the KBR Sports podcast so you all can receive notifications and you guys can receive alerts whenever the KBR Sports podcast is streaming live, like right now, and whenever a podcast is posted up to one of these channels, YouTube, iTunes, SoundCloud, Rabble TV, and or Spreaker. So remember, don't forget to subscribe and follow on one of the different networks I just listed. Also, don't forget to follow the KBR Sports Twitter page at KBR_sports, where we tweet the live links and show topics prior to every single show. Also, don't forget that you all can call in at 571-991-0566 to join in on whatever KBR sports topic we may be discussing, or to give your thought and opinion on just something outside of the world of sports. If you want to talk about maybe something like our comic book trivia that we have routinely on the show, which we will also, which I'm about to get into right now. So, for those of you who may not know me all that well, I'm gonna give you a little insight into my world. I'm a big comic book junkie. I grew up big on superheroes, all that. I've always loved Spider-Man has always been my favorite superhero, along with Deadpool. The superhero world has always had a big influence on me, so I thought, why not incorporate that into my show? So that's why we always have these comic book segments and everything like that, because I always thought it was a cool way to also give some of you guys an insight into the comic book world, little things you all might not know about, little that you might sit here and think, oh well, I want to learn more about comic books, but you just never had anybody to really go in deep detail about it, and that's the show. We're the show that can provide you that. I've also thought about starting a podcast on the weekend or something like that to discuss exclusively things like, not this exclusively, but more so than just the sports talk, because on the regular weekdays we just talk about sports things, but on the weekends that's when you can really just talk about anything. That's where we could talk about comic books, we could talk about the world, politics, all those kind of things. We could talk about video games, movies, television, all that different kind of stuff, different things that people are into. So that's something that we're kind of exploring and maybe thinking about doing, about that will just be inclusive in all things. Of course, it will still include the sports talk. This is a sports talk show, but it will also branch out into more in-depth detail about those other things. So that might be something you guys should be looking forward to real soon. But let me get this comic book trivia going. So, as I alluded to about Spider-Man earlier, him being my favorite comic book character of all time, along with Deadpool. In the comic book story arc with Deadpool and Spider-Man, here is the question. Is it Deadpool or Spider-Man who dies in that comic book story arc? Spoiler alert. Is it, once again, I'm going to repeat the question. Yeah, I know I'm supposed to say spoiler alert before the actual spoiler, but it's a question, so it's not technically a spoiler. I'm just letting you know, spoiler alert. Is it Deadpool or Spider-Man who dies in the comic book series involving the two of them? The most recent comic book series involving the two of them. Remember, you all can call in to give your answer at 571-991-0566, or you can also tweet us at KBR_sports, and you can comment on the KBR Sports podcast with your answer. Look forward to hearing you all's responses. But let me give a quick rundown of the topics we will be discussing today. So, what's the biggest beef been in the NBA according to everybody so far this season? Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant. Big news. Apparently they're back on speaking terms, so I'm going to definitely get into that. Then the question that I've had on my heart that I feel like nobody really delves into, is Tom Brady really the greatest quarterback of all time, or is he just the guy with the most rings? Get into that a little later. Then we'll also talk about LeBron James' dominance, or so we think. Find out what we mean about that later on in the show as well. And then we'll get into the 08 Celtics, just the salt that's just in that situation. You might as well not even call them the Celtics. You might as well call them the Saltics, because they're just so salty. Their beef with Ray Allen is still going on and everything like that. So, you'll get to hear our thoughts on that and everything like that. But to get things kicked off, I'm definitely going to start off with Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant. So, on Inside the NBA, or Kevin Garnett's Area 21 segment on Inside the NBA on TNT, I was just talking about the 08 Celtics, all of them reunited and everything like that, apart from Ray Allen. And Kendrick Perkins was on there, and he was discussing what Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant, because he's a former teammate of both players. Kendrick Perkins, he was on there, and he was saying how when Russell Westbrook broke the triple-double record, that he texted Kevin Durant to talk to him about it, and Kevin said that him and Russell had a good conversation and everything like that. So for Kendrick Perkins' standpoint, that they're both on speaking terms, obviously. And Kendrick Perkins even went as far as to say, as I'm paraphrasing here, y'all, but it's surmising. He went as far as to say as Kevin Durant, he could see Kevin Durant going back to Oklahoma City. Now, yeah, Kevin Durant left Oklahoma City. What most of the media would have you believe is that he left Oklahoma City because he didn't want to play Russell Westbrook anymore. Which is why I can see why these guys trying to say that the media are kind of creating this in between the two, because the fact of the matter is that when you have people saying that there's or you have people saying, oh, one guy left because of the other, and the media has kind of portrayed things in a way to make it a beef, which is why I can see where the both players say, hey, this is a media generated beef, because, or at least Kevin Durant's more so saying that, because think about it, Kevin Durant said, I'm just happy to be playing with like these selfless guys over here and everything like that. And yes, that could have been a shot at Oklahoma City, or he could have really just been saying Golden State is a selfless team. Everybody knows Golden State is the team known for moving the ball, next to the San Antonio Spurs. They're known for moving the ball. The ball doesn't stick. They want to keep the ball moving. Ball moves faster than the actual bodies do. So they like to keep the ball moving. Oklahoma City's offense was very ISO dominated. It was really revolved around Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant. So the ball stuck a lot on Oklahoma City. And if those two couldn't get the game going, or if they couldn't get anything going in terms of scoring or assisting for others, the game kind of bogged down. Whereas in Golden State, the game's always going to keep flowing, keep moving, because they always are keeping the ball moving. There's always body movement. Nobody stands still in that offense for the most part, because there's always movement. There's always somebody setting a screen for another guy, something. So when he says that's a really selfless team, I can see why when you play the clip for a Russell Westbrook, they said, oh, they just kind of made it so it seemed like Kevin Durant, or when they asked Russell Westbrook the question, they made it seem like Kevin Durant was taking a shot at Oklahoma City in him. So that's when Russell Westbrook responded saying, oh yeah, well, I'll just stay over here with my selfish guys then, and we'll try and win over here. So I can see how the media has kind of fed into this beef. They fed into it. Not to say that the two players haven't had a beef on their own, but I'm saying the media has. Let's not act like the media hasn't had any role in feeding into it at all. And then when it comes to Russell Westbrook and how he's fed into it, obviously, the Kevin Durant, how everybody knows Kevin Durant was a photographer at the Super Bowl. He did some photographs he was a credentialed member at the Super Bowl. He did some photographer work at the Olympics. Then Russell Westbrook comes into their game against Golden State wearing a photographer orange vest. So that is something that some people would look at and be like, hey, he was kind of putting Kevin Durant out there. It's one of those things to me, it's like, it's not that big of a deal, but if you want to make it a big deal, you can make it a big deal. And then obviously when the two of them are on the court and Russell Westbrook's yelling at Kevin Durant, I'm coming. If you want to find it, you can find it easily on YouTube. It's one of the biggest clips from that's probably been circulating on television all day today, because that's pretty much all you have of the two having their beef. And then one instance where Russell Westbrook is cutting Kevin Durant off when Kevin Durant was trying to talk to him, and Russell just kind of ends that conversation real quick. But yeah, it doesn't seem like the two really had that much of a strong beef. Honestly, I mean, I for me, if anybody should have a beef, it'd be Russell Westbrook with Kevin Durant, obviously, because Kevin Durant left without really having a face-to-face with Russell Westbrook. A text message doesn't suffice. You don't play with somebody for 8 to 9 years, then let them know, hey, I'm bouncing through text. Like, come on now. Like, even me and Nigel, we've been doing this show for a couple of months. If he was just to leave and be like, hey, I'm just leaving the show, and then couldn't give me the courtesy that have a face-to-face conversation, then I'd be like, oh, well, come on, dude, that's kind of messed up. But if you play with a guy for 8 to 9 years, you would think you would have the common courtesy just to at least see him face to face and let him know, hey, I'm leaving, or to at least give him a phone call. So on that end, I see why Russell Westbrook would be more upset in this situation than Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant, to me, really doesn't have any gripe with Russell, except for the fact whatever reason he had for leaving in the first place. And if Russell was the source of him leaving. But I don't think Russ is the source. I think that was more so of a whole organizational thing. Russ played a role in it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Russ is free of any culpability in this, but I do think that he played a part in it. That's it. I'm not gonna put the whole thing on him like how the media wants to portray this is all Russell Westbrook's fault that Kevin Durant left. No, you run whatever offense you're put in. Oklahoma City ran an offense that was really ISO dominated by those two players. And then in the playoffs last year, when they were up 3-1, they had a game in Golden State. They lost that game. Most people assumed they were going to lose that game 5, but then they assumed they were going to win game 6 at home against Golden State. What happened in that game? Kevin Durant starts taking erratic shots. The shots made no sense whatsoever. They were all just bad shots, walk-up threes when they had about 20 seconds left on the shot clock, all those kind of things. Russell Westbrook turnovers, but that's what Russell Westbrook always does. Everybody knows he's a turnover machine, but Kevin Durant, he was taking erratic shots that were not necessary. So he played as big a role in that loss to the Golden State Warriors as Russell Westbrook did, if not bigger. So, in terms of him possibly returning back to OKC, I could see it possibly happening because of the fact that, let's say that, okay, in the case of LeBron James, LeBron left Cleveland because Cleveland, he didn't feel as though the Cleveland Cavaliers were going to be able to assimilate a team good enough for him to win a title. He done so many things in the year where he faced Orlando. LeBron practically averaged 35 points. I think he averaged 38 points, 9 rebounds, and 7 assists on about 48% shooting. And they still lost to the Orlando Magic in that series. The next year against the Celtics, you could just see in that series that he was just like, I'm outmanned here. So then he ended up leaving to go to Miami because he couldn't convince Chris Bosh or Dwayne Wade to come to Cleveland. So he ends up leaving, wins the 2 rings. But then even though he won those 2 rings, when LeBron, it was kind of a thing of vindication for him, but people were still asking the question, hey, can you win without having the shadow of Dwayne Wade around you? Even though LeBron was the best player on those teams, some would say that was kind of Dwayne Wade's team he went to go join. Whereas when he went to Cleveland, it was his team. Despite the fact Kyrie was there before he got there, Kyrie hadn't won on that team yet. Kyrie hadn't been a winner yet. So when LeBron came there, it was LeBron's team, and LeBron led that team led Cleveland to a championship. So in some aspect, let's say Kevin Durant wins this title this year in Golden State, goes back and wins it again next year, then he's like, okay, I've got the 2 rings that I wanted. Or even if he wins this year and he's content, he can say, I got the ring or the rings that I wanted. Now let me go back and try to see if I can get it for Oklahoma City. And if him and Russell Westbrook are supposedly have mended the fences, then I don't see what would be opposed to them reuniting, especially if they could have a possible better understanding of how each other wants to play, and maybe actually have a conversation about that. Where instead of one just bolting for a different team and blindsiding the other one, that could be a scenario. I mean, that's the thing. I don't know if you actually ask yourself the question, do you see Kevin Durant retiring as a Golden State Warrior? I don't think I actually see him retiring as a Golden State Warrior. So for me, it's like one of those things. If he leaves, like, where would he leave to go to? Maybe him and Russell Westbrook reunite in LA or someplace, but I've never envisioned, ever since he joined the Warriors, I didn't envision Kevin Durant retiring as a Warrior. I imagine Steph Curry retiring as a Warrior. I imagine Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. I just can't imagine Kevin Durant, he's retiring as a Warrior. I mean, that's some interesting stuff to think about. If he went back to Oklahoma City, maybe he goes back to Oklahoma City after him and Russ have amended the fences. He's like, hey, let me go back. I want to win this one for Russ. And I want to win this one for the city. I want to win it for Russ. Because now everybody's pretty much saying Russ can't attract anybody to Oklahoma City because nobody's going to play with them. Well, if Kevin Durant goes back and they have a better understanding of how each other wants to play, maybe they'll be better than they ever were beforehand. Interesting thought. All right, y'all. We're gonna.
Kevin Durant's not going back to OKC.
Okay, no.
Just saying. You keep saying this. It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen.
Stirring,
it's
bro.
not going to.
Stirring.
I'll bet money right now. Kevin Durant.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
How much money you want to bet?
I'll bet $1.
Bet something worth it.
I ain't got no money.
Okay.
Hey, we ain't got money like you. I'm sorry.
Come on. All right, y'all. We're gonna transition. We brought this whole topic. The topic started out with Kendrick Perkins. We're going to keep it going with Kendrick Perkins. When we come back from our break, we're going to talk about how salty about Ray Allen leaving to go to the Heat back in 2012. Stay tuned to find out what we both think. It's KBR Sports, y'all. And don't forget, after the segment ends, wait about 20 or 30 seconds, refresh the page, and our live link will be back up there for you guys to tune into us live. It's KBR Sports, y'all.